All right, good morning, everybody. It's our last week together, and that means today is our final Motivational Monday. So, if you'd like the cinematic experience and the comfy chair, go up to the front of the room for the final one. And as always, make sure you have your headphones off your head, out of your ears. All right. Do have some stuff to talk to you all about grade-wise and what is expected of you in this last week. But first, let's watch our motivational video. And I've got some websites I'm going to pull open on your computers right after we watch this. So this is a project Unity put out that is a really cool, massive multiplayer demo. So it's a great sort of template for you to start with if you actually want to make a massive multiplayer game that can scale up with a lot of players. Built-in matchmaking. All right. So, yeah, guys, you can go and go back to your desks. Very short video today. All right. So, in addition to that video, I want to show you something. Where did my window go? There it is. Okay. So, I'm about to launch this on all of your computers, too, so you can go check it out in more detail. But this is the blog post they did about the game. And also on here is a link to the GitHub repository, which means you can actually just go download it right from here, the entire project, and then open it up in your Unity hub if you want. To do that on the GitHub, you just click where it says code and then download the zip file, and that's going to give you the project. What, Jonas? Yeah, well, Unity likes to give away these projects so that more people make great games with them, because this gives you a huge leg up. You don't have to build all the systems to make a multiplayer game. You can just focus on the style of it or the gameplay. Great point, though. All right, so I'm about to launch this. Let me do that right quick, and then we'll talk about our final assignments. Unblank you. Oh, I only did it to one person. There we go. Blank. Okay, so here comes the blog post first. Send. There you go. And here's a direct link to the GitHub so you can download it. All right. Now let's switch to showing my screen. All right, so we've been working on our guided project with every one of the missions in this creative core pathway. So this is something that you should have been implementing as the final tutorial on each one of the missions, applying your knowledge of that mission into your guided project. On the assignment, I've got 3 animated GIFs kind of showing a final representation of each of the 3 guided projects with all of those things implemented. So in here, you can see on the Alien video game shop. Now, you do not have to have a controllable UFO like I have in mine, okay? That's a little more complicated to switch to that type of camera. But I should see a user interface in your game with buttons and sliders that control things, especially switching between the different camera positions that you set up in the camera mission. So you should have at least 3 cameras in your guided project that the buttons will fly to the different camera positions. That's essential so that we can actually look around your scene in the game. And you should have at least 1 slider controlling something in the game, just like we learned in the user interface section. So here's the architectural rendering. You can see buttons for the cameras down there, and also a button that turns off and on the fireflies, which is the particle effect. And here on the beachside town, in addition to changing the camera positions, there's a dolphin, which just actually triggers an animation of a dolphin coming through the water. So there's a lot of different things you can do. This is really where your creative spark can shine to show me what you're capable of in this final project. So this, along with your game mechanics research projects, are going to be graded for your final exam in this class. So there's no final exam to take. Your submission for the game mechanics research project and your discussion post for your final guided project are what's going to count for your final exam in here. I think before I had said that it's going to count as an A grade and as the exam, and I've decided against that. So it is only going to count for your final exam grade, which means if you have exemptions, you can exempt out of both the game mechanics research project and the discussion post. Lucky you. But if you don't have an exemption, then you will have to submit those for your final exam grade. Yes? Okay, let's hold that until after I'm done talking to everybody else, because that's a very personal question. All right. So I do have a finished demo here that has all 3 built into one. You don't have to do that. Of course, you only worked on one of these, right? And it even shows a thumbnail of the project when you hover over it, which is kind of cool. It's actually made by someone named Francisco Angilio in 2022. So in here you can see it's a controllable UFO you can fly around, and then hitting another button up here will switch to the other cameras. Anyway, you can go check this out. It's linked right on the modules. Also, I need to change the text here. It says it should be a simmer.io. That website is no longer around. So it should be a Unity Play link just like that. Okay. Let's go back to the modules. All right, let's talk about the game mechanics research project. Again, this is something you should have been working on the entire trimester as sort of your back burner project. Remember, the requirements are that you create a Google Doc, play these games. Each one of the games should have one mechanic that you focused on, and all this stuff in orange text is what's required of each one of those, right? So you should have the name of the game and the mechanic that you identified in that game, screenshot showing the gameplay mechanic in action. You should know how to take a screenshot by now, but there's a link there in case you don't. You also need an explanation of how the game mechanic is being used in that screenshot. So example, if there's a screenshot of Mario jumping mid-air, the explanation would be, this is a jumping mechanic which the user triggers by pressing the B button, right? So that's the explanation. D, I want to know what you enjoyed the most about that game. Just a personal question. And lastly, at least one idea of how that mechanic could be used in a future game that you make. Now, I say could, right? It doesn't mean you necessarily are going to do that. Just show me an idea of how you could use that in a game that you want to use. or you're going to make. Okay. And when you submit this, I would prefer it as a file upload instead of a website URL, just because it seems students don't know how to share things properly. So all you have to do in your Google Doc is just go file download, and it's download as either a PDF file or a docx file, which is a Word document. Then submit that file into Canvas. That's what I prefer. In fact, I'm going to go change this right now so that you have to do it as a file and not as a website URL. Because I've had too many students submit the link to their Google Doc and the sharing is wrong. So here we go. Upload it as a file, PDF or doc file. Okay. Also, after that, there is a final mission in the Creative Core pathway that is not going to be graded. But if you're finished with everything already, I do highly suggest you go ahead and do that prototyping mission. It's not for a grade, but this is how you can take everything you've learned in the creative pathway and start developing your own original game with it. That's what prototyping means. In fact, let's watch this real quick video.
Before you get caught up in developing your dream project, it's important to start a little smaller and create a prototype. Prototyping gives you the opportunity to work out what really should be at the heart of the real-time experience that you want to create. This also allows you to test out different approaches to achieve that. There are a lot of different approaches you can take to prototyping, but exploration and iteration are at the core of this process. In this project, you'll learn about some different approaches to prototyping and review an example that we've created as you work on your own prototype. This learning experience is about process rather than a set outcome. If you're new to prototyping, we hope that you'll find something useful no matter what you create. When you've completed this project, you'll be ready to create prototypes for projects whenever you need to. So, are you ready to get started? Let's get to prototyping.
Okay, so again, this does not count for a grade, and because of that, you're mostly on your own. Some if you get stuck on any of these, I can help, but I'm going to be busy, I'm sure, helping other people that are still behind in this class. That's usually what ends up happening, and that's why this is not for a grade, because I'm not able to help you as much as I can in this final week, as there's always students that are behind. Having said that, this is a great set of tutorials, and I highly recommend it to take what you've learned and really make it into something of your own, aside from the guided project. All right. Your final weekly survey question is to tell me something about you that most people don't know.